There's also the problem that the Bible and the Quran get the easiest moral questions wrong. Now, it seems to me that slavery is just about the easiest question we've ever had to face as a species. Is it right to own people and treat them like farm equipment? No. It took us centuries of struggling against the message of our holy books to come to that conclusion. And the president of the Confederacy, Jefferson Davis, is absolutely right to say that slavery is supported in the Bible. The God of Abraham clearly expects us to keep slaves. The wisest thing he could say about it was that you don't beat them so badly that you knock out their eyes or their teeth, because then you have to set them free. So if the Bible and the Quran come from an omniscient being, who is by definition the wisest source of ethical insight to be found in the universe, it seems to me he should get the question of slavery right. I mean, this fact alone, I think, should just topple religion. It hasn't yet, I've noticed, but it should. Now, many people worry that moral truth is somehow, it must be fictional in some sense, because our moral intuitions are so easily confounded. And I want to give you a few examples of why this shouldn't trouble us. So this is a problem that some of you may be familiar with. It's called the trolley problem. A trolley's coming down the tracks. If you do nothing, it's going to hit 5 workmen and kill them. But you stand at a switch, and you can throw the switch, diverting the trolley so that it only kills 1 workman, saving a net 4 lives. Now, when you present the problem this way, something like 95% of people say you absolutely have to throw that switch. You have the clearest ethical obligation. You'd be a monster not to do it. This is obviously good. But the problem is you can describe this another way. You now stand on a footbridge, and there's a suitably large person beside you, and you now push him into the path of the oncoming trolley, killing him, but saving the 5 workmen and a net 4 lives. And when you describe it in this guise, then people completely flip, and it's 95% thinking you would be a monster to push that guy. Now, I happen to think this problem is sort of ill-posed, and many of us burn a lot of fuel with an intuitive physics, wondering whether the guy is really going to stop the trolley when you push him. But let's leave that aside and stipulate that these are analogous situations. People come away from this challenge to moral intuition confounded, and they think, well, how could there be such a thing as moral truth if we can be confused in this way? Now, notice we don't do this when our logical intuitions are confounded. Now, this is the Monty Hall problem. How many of you are familiar with the Monty Hall problem? How many of you are sure you know the right answer to the Monty Hall problem? Okay, this is, after all, Harvard. All right, well, you guys be quiet. So you're on a game show, and you're presented with 3 doors. Behind one door is a new car, and behind the other 2 doors are goats. If you pick the right door, you win the new car. So you pick door number 1, and Monty Hall then opens door number 2, revealing a goat. And he asks you whether you want to switch at this point. Do you want to move to door number 3? How many of you who are not familiar with this problem think you should switch? How many of you think it doesn't matter if you switch, it's just 50-50 either way? Okay, well, there's many smart people, mathematicians, scientists, have an intuition that there's no reason to switch. I mean, it's not just smart people. Basically, everyone has this intuition that why would you switch? There's a car behind one door, there's a goat behind the other, there are 2 doors, this has got to be a coin toss. Well, the fact is you should switch. Your odds of winning go up to 2/3 when you switch to door number 3, and they're 1/3 if you stick with door number 1. But the fact that our logical intuitions are confounded in this way never for a moment leaves us thinking, well, maybe there's no right answer to the Monty Hall problem. And there are people who understand this probabilistically who can still fall back into saying, wait a minute, there's still just two doors and there's a car and a go, then it's got to be 50-50. Incidentally, it's easier to see if you imagine 1,000 doors with your initial choice. And you pick door number 1, and then Monty Hall invalidates 998 doors, leaving door 576 as your other viable choice. Now, clearly, you've been given a ton of information, and all of that uncertainty has now collapsed onto the other remaining door. And even our most basic perceptual intuitions can be confounded. And this is just one of hundreds of psychophysical or visual illusions. I'm sure, if you can actually get the proper look at the screen, that everyone in this room sees the tower on the right as leaning further to the right than the tower on the left. Now, they are in fact the same image. And we know that the illusions of this sort actually tell us something about our visual system. And we know that if anything of great import ever depended on our understanding that these are both the same tower, we would correct for this reliable illusion. And I think there's no question that we have moral illusions. This example comes from the work of Paul Slovic, who's a psychologist. When you ask a group of people how much they would give to help one little girl in need, you get a maximum level of donation and a maximum confession of empathy. And if you ask another group of people how much they would give to help a little boy in need, you get the same result. But if you ask people how much they would give to help a little boy and a little girl in need, both altruistic donation and self-reported empathy are cut by 25%. This is clearly not a good result. I mean, this is a bug, not a feature. And if you add more children, both donations and empathy go through the floor. Okay, so we are clearly not tuned to recognize the greater occasions of human suffering. It seems to me rather obvious that if you care about one little boy and you care about one little girl, you should care at least as much about their combined faith. And this is what explains in Paul Slovic's mind a phenomenon he's called genocide neglect, which most of us have at least subliminally noticed. Genocides are kind of boring. We actually don't have too much free attention for them. If they even make the news, we can't really be bothered to spend much time absorbing the details. And yet, if a little girl falls down a well, I don't know if you can see this photo on the left, but this is a photo of baby Jessica, who was rescued from a well in, I think it was 1989. And the coverage of this incident was just wall to wall. It's like 96 hours of baby Jessica all the time. And basically everyone with a television set had the free attention to find out what happened to this little girl. And yet we find out that 800,000 people are hacked to death in 2 months in Rwanda, and we can barely pay attention.